Okay. All right. So today, I am really excited to have Manny Wolf with me. Has been a friend of mine for a long time,
Mhm.
and we have a great time every time that we're together. Whenever we're chatting, we go on for hours, it seems like.
Yeah.
But today we have a really specific purpose, and we want to talk about how to get booked on stages, both virtual and in person,
Yeah.
more in 2025. Not only just for the sake of doing it, but acts as an actual way to grow your business and
Yeah.
basically break out of the bubble.
Yeah.
So Manny, thanks for being here.
Of
Um,
course.
do you want me to say anything else about that?
No,
Hop
that's
right
that's
in.
good. Yeah, I can just hop right in. So the first thing I'm curious about, do any of you guys currently use speaking strategically?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
yeah, if you
let's
do,
say
put it over in the
nobody.
chat or
Yeah.
say something.
Yeah.
And
Or say something. You can speak, by the way.
yeah,
This is
you can
this
turn
is
on your
not
mic.
this is not one direction. But if you
I'll
don't,
say
that's cool.
I'll say that I used to speak
Yeah.
a
Hmm.
lot. And then, 2020 happened and
Hmm.
nobody was speaking. And then that's when virtual events
Yeah.
really took off.
Hmm.
And I did quite a few summits at that time. And then, I just got kind of burnt out on it. And I pivoted in my business during that time. And I think a lot of people did. But now I feel like speaking on stages for me personally is a way to break out of what seems to be this little bubble that I float around in.
Yeah.
And I described this to someone the other day about I've got my email list that, I mean, it grows, but I talk to these people all the time on email. I talk to
Hmm.
these people all the time on social media. And then I have, that's about it. Unless I'm getting outside of my own network
Yeah.
somehow, I guess paid ads would be a way to do that. Getting on stages or podcasts or anything like that is
Yeah.
really, for me, a great way to break out of that bubble and reach more of the people that I want to be helping, right? I just
Yeah.
feel like I'm repeating myself over and over to the same people.
So what I'd like to do, you guys, is kind of explain the value of it and everything, and give you this sort of. Um, I make the assumption you're all a little bit seasoned. Nobody here is a complete rookie to sort of doing business with social media and online. And if I'm making that assumption correctly, then you'll understand when I say I'm going to give you the regular spiel. But I'm gonna like open it up too for questions. And I'd love for this to be as interactive as you guys want or need it to be.
Yeah.
With that having been said, I've been figuring out client acquisition basically for the last 12 years. They've done it a lot of different ways. So very quickly, I wrote my life story not because I wanted to somehow break into the world of coaching. I didn't even know coaching was a thing when I was writing my life story. I did it very much because, and has nothing to do with speaking, except that great stories are great stories. Um, I needed to figure out a way to get out from under the 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 lava pool of rage I felt for my family. And it's a little unexpected, but like
Yeah.
I had a really, really, really batshit crazy childhood. So, I was born in a cult in 1967 in San Francisco. We'll just start with that.
Yeah.
And because of my upbringing, everything that I was inherently interested in, which is like communication, the free market, capitalism, all of these things that most of us just take as sort of part of our worlds, I was taught to reject those things wholeheartedly, roundly. I was it's so interesting to me that I see this sort of surge in these communist ideas and Marxist ideas and I'm not here to judge them one way or the other. So I want to be clear on that. But it's really fascinating to me that I see this resurgence in them because that's exactly what I was born into. And
Hmm.
in my case, it was the polar opposite of what I was interested in. And so there was a lot of struggle. And the struggle led to a lot of like personal improvement, self-help, therapy, stuff like that, trying to figure these things out. And at a certain point, the woman who is now my wife, who is at that point my girlfriend, I threw yet another one of my horror stories at her casually and dismissively because I knew that that was a good way to impress people. And she just looked at me and she said, "You have to write this down. You've got to tell your story." And that literally was the starting of how I wind up here today. And so I said, "Okay," because I didn't know what else to say. I said, "Okay." So I sat down and through a very, very interesting and difficult process, I wrote my entire life story out. Um, that was how I came into the online space because I was trying to figure out what do you do now that you have a manuscript? And the world had totally changed, obviously, from, oh, you send it off to every publisher and you get a bunch of rejections. And then
Mhm.
one day you get that great movie moment where you open it and it's an acceptance. None of that happened for me. None of that happened for me at all, not even close. And so I started trying to figure out how to make something out of my book. Like, what do I do with this? And that led me into, prior to that, I had had quite a few years of experience with performing, both musical and theater, and some public speaking as well. And the weirdest thing happened when I got the book. I launched it. It did very well. I started a podcast, and I thought that I would be the world's greatest men's coach. That was literally my vision, was I'm going to coach men to break through their barriers and help the world be better. And people started saying, "Can you teach me how to sound like you?" Which is nothing, like it came out of nowhere. And so I was like, "Yes, of course I can." That was my answer, was you bet your ass I can. And so the first money I made online was teaching a guy how to sound better on the microphone, a podcaster. And I was hooked. It's like, well, if I can do that once, I can do it over and over again. And so that led from going from vocal coaching and sort of like being charismatic on the microphone was really the main thing, into the obvious next step was helping speakers. Because podcasters want it, it'll be even better for speakers. Um, and I found myself in the world of working with public speakers. They all want to be better on stage, but more than that, they all want to know how to get booked.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, it just sort of like clicked. It was just one of those moments like Steve Jobs talked about where you connect the dots in reverse. And I was like, why don't I figure out how to get these people booked on stage? Why don't I do that? And I looked into agency ideas. I looked into what are they called, like speaker bureaus. I didn't like either of them for a very, very important reason. For anybody who does speak or wants to speak, here's what you have to understand. If you want an agent, you've got to know that they are highly incentivized to book their top paid speakers.
Hmm.
So it's about half the work and typically about twice the money for them. And so everybody comes to me and says, "I've got an idea. What if I give you 30% of every event you book for me?" And I'm like, "Well, then I'd be an agent." And I don't want to be an agent because I want to serve everyone the same. But then you got the other side of it, which is speaker bureaus, which is very similar to just putting a poster of yourself on a wall somewhere and hoping for the best. Like neither of them are, the models are inherently skewed away from you and toward them. And so my solution was, what if I just do it as a service, a very high level service, and I just go out and I find them and I apply to them. So spoiler alert, at the end of all this, that's what I'm going to reveal to you,
Yeah.
is that what I do is I find them and apply to them. And there's no like, people always think we're so conditioned by the social media marketing sort of space that people are like, "Yeah, but what's the catch?" Like always, there's no catch.
I think
Okay.
I asked that too after
Yeah,
I,
you asked that too.
well, what else is there? And there
Right.
wasn't anything.
There's
So
no
let's
fine
back up
print.
just a little bit. We talked
Yeah.
about um like my personal reasons for wanting to get out
Mhm.
uh we're just gonna use the word stages or
Yeah.
events, but let's identify what those things are. So what are speaking engagements in general? Like, I know this could be very elementary for some people, but we're not talking about just being on stage at some massive conference, right? We're talking
Typically,
about all
no.
kinds of
Yeah,
different things. So what falls under the category of booking a speaking engagement?
sure. First and foremost, I'm looking for live stages to put people on. And second to that would be virtual. And then if the person is interested, also podcasts.
Okay.
That's kind of it, really.
Yeah.
And then within the world of live events, and to some extent within the world of virtual events, you can also do workshops and breakout rooms and things like that.
Uh-huh. On
They
top
try,
of like their big main stage events.
right, yeah. And if you want to speak in order to get clients, here's a little pro tip for you. Always offer a free workshop if they book you to speak. Always offer a free breakout session if they book you to speak, because that is where you get to earn the trust of the people you're
Mm-hmm.
talking to.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that you guys need to know is we are in what some people have dubbed a trust recession.
Yeah, I've
You
seen that.
know, and that's a clever term, but the reality is trust is extremely low. The market is as sophisticated as it can be. There's no higher level of sophistication right now in the coaching and information space and sort of expert services market. And so you have to know how to earn trust. You know, you've probably heard people say that attention is the new currency.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone heard that? It's true, but right on the back of attention is trust, right? There are plenty of people that got my attention who I don't trust. So you got
Yeah.
to have both. You've got to be paying attention to both.
Yeah.
Uh, Jonathan said, I've done virtual conferences, executive retreats, and podcasts. It's the conference stages I'm interested in getting onto. Yeah. So, Jonathan, that is definitely one of the things that you're going to find out how we do. I was going to say how you can do, but I don't want to assume that everybody wants to follow the same process that I'm going to show you guys.
Yeah. So
And so,
I'm going to ask a couple basic questions if that's all right.
mhm. Yeah.
For these stages, if we're looking for things to speak at or whatever, I've seen this a lot. And it's called pay to play.
Yes, that is a big
So
one.
there's a lot of people that put on these events and they will open an opportunity for you or a person to speak at them, but that they want to charge you money
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
order to do it. It's not uncommon to have that happen. Do you recommend that model? Like if I wanted to be in front of a community, like a different community or something, should I pay for
Right.
that? Or are there plenty of other opportunities where I don't necessarily have to pay to share my expertise?
There's a few dimensions to that question, and that's one that I get a lot. It is very person dependent, right? Amanda, I bet you would be fine at a pay to play. I don't know the rest of you well enough to say whether you'd be okay with it or not. But the thing about pay to play is this. Typically, the person putting the event on, because of just optimism, they almost always overestimate the number of people in the audience.
Yeah.
So when they try to charge you 500 or 1,000 or whatever it is, they're going to say there'll be 300 people in attendance. That's them wishing and hoping, right? And and I don't say this to disparage them, but it is very hard to fill a room with people who know that they're going to be pitched over and over again.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
very hard to do that. So, is pay to play viable? Yes. If you're confident, if you have a great presentation, if what you have to sell is a match for the people in that room, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because typically one client will be three, four, five times what it costs to present.
Yeah.
And that's
And
just one
typically
client.
a pay to play will, if you're paying, they're going to allow you to sell something.
Yeah.
Most
If
often.
if you ever run into a pay to play opportunity that doesn't allow you to pitch, my advice would be go the other way. There's
Yeah.
no point in it. There's no point in it
Yeah.
unless you're the person putting on the event.
So
In that
then
case, it's wonderful.
there's other events that are maybe not pay to play, but you don't get paid to speak.
Yep.
But then those usually come with different kinds of rules about pitching,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that if I host an event, I've hosted about 15 large scale events up to date, and we don't allow any pitching from stage.
Mhm.
We also don't require, well, I'll say some people did pay to play because they were sponsors that were then
Yeah.
allowed to speak.
Yeah.
That was just part of the sponsorship. So that was a whole different thing. But typically, we were hosting an event for a reason, and that was to sell our main program, and we
Right,
don't want
right.
other people watering that down.
Yeah.
But it didn't hurt that the person on stage still got the exposure. So
Yeah. There are a lot. So one of the things that I feel like people maybe miss when it comes to should I do speaking as part of growing my, typically it's an expert services kind of a business.
mm,
And the answer is, unless you hate speaking, which some people do, I'd say yes, you should do it. It's a very, very potent tool. In fact, it might be the single most potent tool you could develop, perhaps second only to something like a webinar.
yeah, well,
And
it creates so much authority whenever you get
precisely,
command of that stage, whether it's a
precisely.
small one or a virtual one,
Mhm.
you are in the position of authority at that point.
Right. And you get pictures and video and testimonials and all that stuff is real capital, right?
Yeah.
It's really valuable. And then so I would just say like the sponsorship thing is sort of I would say it's a more responsible version of having some people pay to speak,
Yeah.
but not everyone. That way the audience isn't inundated. So it's, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but so you've got pay to play, you've got free, and you've got paid. Those are
Yeah.
generally the three biggies. Would you like me to just break down the difference as I see
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. That'll be
Cool.
great.
So most people, it's their ego that wants to get paid to speak. And I get it. I've been paid to speak. I've spoken for free. The most fun I ever had at an event was I got invited to be a judge of a speaking competition. And there's a point to that. I showed up, and the lady who asked me to come, she couldn't even pay for travel and room, right? She paid for one of them. I don't remember which it was. I think she paid for my hotel, and I paid for my own plane ticket. But I mean, just going there and hanging out for 2 days and judging the speaking competition, I built so much authority up that I wound up selling $14,000 of services. And that's very standard. That's very typical in my experience and in the experience of people that I speak with about this. The authority thing mixed with the fact that if the event is good, people are primed. They're just in
Yeah.
the headspace of committing to services and growth and stuff like that. So I don't want to say shooting fish in a barrel, but it's not unlike shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah.
And so then you've got free. Free are hands down my favorite, guys. And here's why. Just very quickly, let's say you've got a $3,000 service or program or offer, whatever it is. And if you've been in this space long enough, you know that's very common. That would be
Yeah.
probably middle of the road. And you get to speak to 100 people, right? A room full of 100 people that are a good fit for what you do. You can't pitch because it's a free event. But if you're compelling and you make the case, and I always like to, I use this little sine wave example for how all talks need to go, like problem, or rather opportunity, problem, solution, right? No matter what you've seen in terms of sales scripts or webinar scripts, it all follows that curve,
Hmm.
basically. In fact, if you want later, you can message me and I'll give you my uh, one paragraph training on how to master copywriting because it all follows this curve always, every time, no
What's the
exceptions.
first part of it? It starts with this and then it goes to here and then it comes back up.
Like awareness, like what we're doing right now would be
Okay.
the first part of it, right? We're establishing that there is this thing out there that maybe could help you.
Okay.
And then you want to get into the problems, the pains, the struggles.
Uh-huh.
And what I always say is once you've taken them down to the depths of hell, you then swoop in and fly them up to, Opportunity Island or whatever you want
Yeah.
to call
Okay.
it. So, but the free ones, if you get 3 clients, 3 out of 100 people, you've made $9,000. To get paid $9,000 to keynote, if you ever get there, will take a minimum of, I'd say, 3 years of consistent speaking. Or you have to have done something extremely rare,
Yeah.
right? Like swam the English Channel blindfolded or something, whatever it is. You know what I mean?
And
You have
people
to
would have
have,
to find out about that thing that you did.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So getting to that, like that sort of legendary $10,000 keynote level is totally doable, but you
Hmm.
got to understand for most people, you are tripping over dollars to pick up dimes if you go that route.
Yeah, I saw
Because,
you made a post about that with a
yeah.
lot of math in it, and it
Hmm.
was really good. It
Yeah.
was really good. Now, there are some people, and there could be some people here listening now that
Hmm.
want to be speakers. Like that's
Yep.
their thing. And
Yeah.
obviously, you don't stop at the 10K. Like Ben Hardy right now, Dr. Ben Hardy, I'm in a transformation challenge of his.
Hmm.
His he will not take a speaking arrangement under 60,000 ever again,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
But he didn't start out there.
Right. Yeah. When you get
But
to the
that's what he wants
highest,
to be now. He just wants to be a
mhm,
speaker and an author, right? That's
yeah.
it. A
Yeah.
lot of us want to speak in order to propel our authority to sell our service or
Correct.
coaching or course or whatever that
Yeah.
is.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but when you get paid, I just liked how you did all the math. You broke it down just kind of like you
Hmm.
did, like you sell three and you've made 9,000,
Right.
or you speak for 9,000 and then that's it, you know?
Right. And it takes you years to get to be able to command 9,000.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's about 3 to 5 years from starting out to getting to that sort of like that well-paid keynote
And you got
level.
to cut your teeth a lot on the way,
A
right?
lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot. And so those are all viable pathways. And I'm speaking to you under the assumption that most of you are here not specifically to be speakers, but because you have a curiosity about using speaking for your business.
Yeah. I would say that's
Am I
looking at
tracking
who,
that right with this
yeah,
audience?
I think so. If we're
Okay.
wrong,
Yeah.
put it in the comments
Yeah,
that
right. If we're
you're
wrong,
looking to
tell
be
us.
like paid speaker and that's all you want to do.
Mhm.
Because that's
Yeah.
fine too. That's I've met a lot of people that started out doing that
Hmm.
and then just really got burned out on the
Yep.
travel, and it was their whole business was dependent upon them going to these events
Yeah.
and being on
Yeah.
stage. And like Mel Robbins is one of them. She used to
Hmm.
travel all the time and she just got tired of it. She wanted to be home with her family.
Yeah.
And that's what I help people do, is leverage their time more. And so here you're trading time for money when you are getting paid to play. I mean, you get paid to play,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's dependent on you showing up every single time.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
not just showing up for that 1 hour. It's the travel, the prep before it, the travel after it,
Yeah.
all the things that go into it.
Yeah.
But when you are at an event, which
Hmm.
I don't think we finished this, when you're at an event and you are speaking for free, but no
Hmm.
pitching,
Hmm.
you are building that authority.
Yeah.
And then what happens after you leave the stage? Typically at these
So,
events, I can speak from my own experience, but I just want to
yeah,
hear, I'm asking you because it's going to be the same answer. But what
it is.
happens when you finish your talk, your speech, whatever,
Mhm.
you give them the bell curve of
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
and what happens after that? Typically.
Typically, people will line up to talk to you.
Yeah,
That is the most common thing. And of those people, most of them would be interested in learning what you have to sell. Now,
absolutely.
this depends on a couple of things. And, one of the first things I learned in internet marketing was what is it? Sell them the sizzle and give them the steak. I don't like doing that. I don't want you coming in under false pretenses on any level into my world. You can choose your hard. And in 2025, every marketing channel requires more from you than it did a year ago.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. Ads cost more. You need better copy to get attention. So everything you do, I guess my message is always just treat it like a career. Take it seriously. Develop your skills.
Hmm.
Don't get caught up in any of those easy button things because other than the person selling them, I don't know anyone who's had success with any of those too good to be true offers. And again, I've been knocking elbows with people for like 12 years in this space. Amanda, we've actually known each other like 8 or 9 years.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. But so what does it take to create a talk that is compelling, right? That's its own question. And we're not going to go into that here,
Right.
but it takes work. But so does doing a 5-day challenge. So does developing a group. So does building a funnel. Like all, you know what I mean? And so I don't want to make any assumptions that you guys all expect things to be easy, but I do, like, part of my message to people all the time now is treat it like a career. Like, divest yourself of the ideas that all the sort of marketing gurus are trying to convince you are real.
Yeah.
You're not only one funnel away. Okay. You're
Dang.
one funnel away from bankruptcy,
I guess, yeah.
nervous breakdown.
Yeah, for that for sure.
Yeah.
So Kathleen asks, what are your thoughts on landing a TEDx talk, like a TED talk?
Yeah.
And can that really fast track you? I know that TED Talks were all the thing
Mhm.
before COVID.
Yep.
It was hot. It was, well, there was
Hot, hot,
only
hot.
one at that time that I'm
Yeah.
thinking of, and it was almost impossible to get a TED stage. So, but
So
what do you think about that now?
you just stop me if I go too deep,
Okay.
Amanda. Yeah. So TED and TEDx, same branding, but really the difference between, let's say, an Audi R8 and a TT, if you're a car person. The TT is the cute little sports car that, doesn't handle world class. The R8 is their halo vehicle, which is the best one you can buy. That's TED. TEDx is the TT. Um, TEDx's are great social capital. They still are. They still have that. TED Talks, you can't even, unless things have changed, you can't even apply on your own behalf. You have to be nominated.
Uh-huh.
It's a whole different world. TED Talks are,
So it's
it,
still highly competitive for
it's
the
still highly
Main
competitive.
TED stage.
Yeah, almost impossible to get. And you really have to have done something world changing.
Uh-huh.
That's, at least that used to be their criteria. You can't just write a great book and get a TED Talk. You have to write a book that changes a million lives
Uh-huh.
measurably, and then you get a TED Talk.
So then what is TEDx? Is that more of an industry specific type talk or
So
is it
TEDx's are independently run satellites that have permission to use the TED branding. And their general theme is ideas that can change the world, just like TED. TEDx's more and more have become low key revenue generators for people, which I'm not judging. I did judge when I first found that out. I was pissed. But so they'll have, like, speaking coaches that you have to use in order to
oh,
go to their TEDx and stuff like that. They found these sort of circuitous ways to make money off it. And in terms of the public perception, it's like baby TED. You do have to have a good idea. You got to have a good talk. Whatever you're sharing has to have some real impact and meaning. But you can nominate yourself. You can apply over and over again. In fact, if you guys would like, I have a list right now of 99 TEDx talks I'll share with each and every one of you. And
awesome.
then you'll find, oh, this is wonderful. I now have 99 applications to fill out.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be great. I'll make
But
sure to
yeah,
share it with everybody.
yep, I'll give those to you guys if you want them. Happy to share it. So that's the difference
So,
primarily.
okay, so the question then becomes, can landing one of those stages, like a TEDx, even the TT of the stages, can it really help propel you significantly, maybe faster than just some unknown conference for, real estate agents
Yes,
in Oklahoma City?
yes. Not across the board, not in every case, but yes. Speaking, like everything else, excuse me, like everything else, speaking is, it's competitive, and there are smart people trying to figure out how to hack the system.
Hmm.
And so, what a TEDx can do for you now, most likely, unless it goes viral, which is a whole other conversation we could have, but maybe
Yeah.
not today, is it will really look good on your application for other speaking opportunities.
Uh-huh.
They do still like TEDx quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, and you get the prestige, right? Broadly speaking, you have the prestige of having done a TEDx talk, which is not nothing.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yep. It is not also, at the same time, you didn't get the golden ticket. You didn't find the genie lamp on the beach. It's not that. You know what I
Okay.
mean? It's like,
But honestly, there may not be that.
Not
if you think
really.
about it. So I
Not
have a
really.
really
Yeah.
great friend. She's breaking into speaking.
Hmm.
She's a leadership person. She helps leader people like CEOs or whatever be better leaders for their
Hmm.
teams. And
Yeah.
she got booked on a stage
Hmm.
that was not ever going to be on her radar.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it is for an event happening next year, early next year, and it's for photographers.
Hmm.
If you're thinking about a leadership coach for CEOs, you're not thinking like, if you're a
That's right.
leadership coach for CEOs,
That's
you're not
right.
going, man, I should be helping photographers.
I need to be
You're
thinking
thinking
about
corporate, you're
photographers.
thinking
Yeah.
people with bigger teams,
That's right.
whatever.
That's right.
But she landed this thing. There are going to be 3,000 people
Yeah.
in this event.
Yeah.
This could be her golden ticket,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean. More powerful than a TED Talk, more notoriety, more
Hmm.
like she's still going to get all the assets and all the things, but she's going to be in front of 3,000 people that could feasibly potentially want to work with her.
Yep.
Now, is it a TEDx talk? No. How many people would you say are typically in a TEDx audience, just in person, not counting all
Yeah.
the sharing and the social?
About 200
Yeah. So if
for a
you
TEDx.
you
Yeah.
have a TEDx for 200 people, or you have an industry event of roofers, even like let's just think
Hmm.
about there's so many industry events,
Yeah.
plumbers, whatever it is, and there's going
Yeah.
to be thousands of people in this room,
Hmm.
hopefully looking for the solution that you're going to provide them, then is one better than the other?
Yeah.
It depends
Yeah.
on your
That's
goals, I
like,
guess.
yeah. Is an orange better than an apple?
Yeah.
You know, it really is. What I would say, thank you, Jonathan. Uh, if you have an opportunity to get a TEDx talk, it's worth it. It's totally worth it. One of the things about a TEDx talk that no other talk will do is it forces you to sharpen your presentation skills because they're very strict typically. You have
Hmm.
18 minutes or less, but not over. You have to stay in the spot. You have to be engaging. Like there's a lot of stuff there that it would be like a boot camp for what I might call regular speaking, right?
Yeah.
And to be clear, having a good message is just the tip of the iceberg with being a sought after speaker. I mean, you've got to have skills. You got to have delivery skills. You got to have charisma. You got to know your body language. Maybe more than anything else, you've got to know your body language. And then you've got to understand vocal tonality and how those are the foundation upon which you can sit your presentation, you can sit your story.
Yeah.
There again, a wonderful conversation for another time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, so there's three main kinds of stages to get on.
Yep.
And so then I think it's important to just briefly talk about what you're not what you're going to speak about, because you that could be anything,
Yeah.
but what are you offering? Like what's your like every person that wants to get onto some stage or another, you got to have your end goal in mind,
Hmm.
what you want out of this thing,
Yeah.
and an offer or the solution that you're leading people towards, whether it's blatant that you're able to tell them,
Mhm.
like, this is my solution,
Yeah.
or you get to allude to it and say, well, talk to me later if you want some help with this or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you got to know what your end game is,
Like
right?
with everything else. Yeah. You got
Yeah.
to, if you go into it with no plan, you'll never know if you got out of it what you wanted. Right. Um, so for those of us that want to use speaking as a lever in our businesses, what I would suggest is for your presentation itself, make it a story or a collection of stories. That would be number one. So instead of saying, I offer this service, and in 2023, we did these things, and you've got like bullet points and slides behind you, wrap it all into a story the way I did with the math about free versus paid. I got two clients off of that
Oh,
post, and
off of that
there was
post?
no call to action or
No.
anything. It
Yeah,
was just explaining the thought process. And that's kind of, in a way, that's the power of stories, right?
exactly.
You can communicate the value, you can do all these things without ever saying, so Deb, I'd like to talk to you about Amway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
So no, but you got to have a clear offer or a
you got to
path
have a clear
that,
message. And what I would say is the message should be wrapped around the value of what you do,
yeah.
right? And also things like, how did you come to this awareness? Like that's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Who were you before you had your aha moment that led you to this thing you now understand so well?
Yeah,
That's hero's journey stuff. And
exactly.
we cannot get enough of that stuff as humans.
Well, you have to have the stories have to be able to turn on some trigger in the
Yeah,
listener's
that's right.
brain that they can actually relate to.
So now you're
Right.
getting into the speaker training
Yeah, I
side of
don't mean to get into
things.
that. I don't
No,
want,
I'll geek out on that forever. But
but
you're right,
really
though.
what's
You're right.
important here is why stages can be a really great propellant
Hmm.
for your
Hmm.
business.
Yep.
What kinds of stages are possible,
Yeah.
which we've talked about.
Hmm.
What does it take to start applying
Sure.
to be on these stages? Because you can't just type up your name and like website and like, okay,
Yeah,
you
that's
pick
right.
me, right? So what are these
Yeah.
assets or things that people need to get to be able to really get on these stages, to get
So
picked?
now we're getting into the meat of it.
Yeah.
What I decided I would do for this call and for whoever showed up on it is walk you through. So again, I have an agency, and one of our core services is finding and applying to speaking gigs for people. And we promise up to 100 a month. And what I mean by that specifically is we will exhaust every resource to get as close to 100 a month as possible.
Yeah.
There's always the person. I had a guy before COVID who said, I love it. I'm in. Sign me up. By the way, I don't want to travel past New Jersey. I kid you not. I said, well,
Where did he live? In New York?
he lived in New Jersey. He lived in
Oh,
New Jersey. Yeah, even
he doesn't
better.
want to leave it. Okay.
Right. And so I said, all right, sure, but you should probably expect about 6 or 7 applications filed for you every month rather
Yeah.
than at that time it was 50. And so, um, first thing you need to know is it's a numbers game. It's a straight up numbers game. Don't get, well, I like when it comes to lead generation and marketing, I always tell my clients, don't fall in love with any one lead. Don't fall in love with any one prospect, right? Because you just never know. And you got to be able to sort of just play it like a numbers game. So
Okay.
with that in mind, um, I'll give you a quick example. This is how we start. We would give you an intake form, and it's very, very comprehensive. Because what that does is that gives us everything we need to know about you to go sell you,
Yeah.
right? Names of talks, abstract, picture, speaker one sheet, video reel if you've got it, backstory, like all of this stuff. And so that we know that we can now go out and not just say, here's Fred, he'd like to speak. Here's Deb, she'd like to speak. It's more like, here's a really intriguing topic that I bet you hadn't thought of before. And Fred is the guy to deliver it to your audience, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So those
So,
are things you would need whether you're doing the
yeah.
work for us or not, right?
Oh, absolutely. You've got to be ready with this stuff. Yeah.
Do you help
Um,
get those assets together? Say
mhm.
somebody comes in and doesn't like they're just starting out and they don't have those types of things. Are you able to help them get those things?
Yes. Yes. The main thing we can do is create your one sheet. And if you know speaking at all, the one sheet is just the quick little, it's literally one piece of paper that's got all your key information on it. And we make it so that it doesn't look like Canva circa 2012, like all speaker one sheets seem to look. It's like, wow,
Or
the
my
kid did a
word
great,
art,
yeah,
Microsoft
like
Word art.
your kid did a great job on that. So anyway, um, we do. So the onboarding, we tighten up your marketing materials, your collateral. But I want to give you guys a starting point here. So I have one that I was running as an example for my team. And you would go to Google and you would simply type in open calls for speakers, then a space, then the plus sign, then a space. And that's going to come back over and over again, that little space plus space. And then whatever region you're willing to travel in. I usually do US, but in this case, I did US plus Europe
Oh,
because I
okay.
just wanted to really show my team, um, how broad it can get. So calls for speakers plus USA plus Europe plus 2025. And I just picked a random one plus mental toughness.
Okay.
Then I went to Chat GPT and I said, give me 10 alternatives for mental toughness, right? 10 different ways, 10 different things that mean the same. And it did that. And I was like, holy hell, here's 10 different search strings. Like it really was cool. And so then you have to go through and look at the results. You got to skip past the sponsored ones at the top, obviously,
Yeah.
but everybody can figure that out. And you literally have to go in one by one, find the application. First, you gotta determine whether the link is still good because a lot of them are still there that aren't good anymore. And so it's just this digging process, right?
Uh-huh.
It's ferreting through to find the ones with the applications on the website. And then you just fill out the application. And that's it, and then it's going to rely on things like how sticky and intriguing is your talk title? How
Mm-hmm.
sticky and intriguing is the abstract? How good is your headshot? Do you look like you know what you're doing? So little stuff like that. And I kid you guys not, it's just rinse and repeat after that. You change your search string, you change your maybe your range, your date range, your
Mm-hmm.
topics. This is a perfect place for AI to help you, by the way. This is not one of those things where it's like AI comes in and takes over the job. This is a smart use of AI, which is give me 10 different variations of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Give me 20 different If I'm a speaker who specializes in this, what are some great other topics I haven't thought of where people would appreciate my message? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
Expand
we,
your mind a little bit.
yeah, yeah. And so the team uses that as our flywheel for every client, right? We are oh, so you're a theta healer. Okay, cool. Me, myself, I don't know 10 variations of theta healing. I bet you Chat GPT does. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And spoiler alert, it does. And so we just look for wellness conferences, yoga retreats, theta, anything you can think of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, even like HR departments in this is very specific. HR departments in tech startups that are at B or C round funding.
Uh-huh.
Does anybody know why B or C round?
No.
Because that's when you would be expected to start thinking about an HR department.
Okay.
Round A, you're just building your prototype.
Mm-hmm.
Round B, you might still be building your prototype. But by C, you've got 50 to 80 employees and now you need some control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So just
So,
little idiosyncratic stuff like that that most people don't think about that gets you out of that like narrow channel, right? Like I'm a fitness coach. I can only talk to people interested in fitness. Nothing could be further from the truth.
right.
And you won't find 100 speaking
It's
opportunities a
just
month.
like the example I just gave. She never
Mhm.
would have thought about going to speak to photographers. This
That's
just
right.
happened for her. And
Yeah.
now it almost was like mind blowing. It broke the barriers of thought to
Yeah.
think,
That's
oh,
right.
you're telling me all these people can use this in
Yeah.
one way or another. And especially if you have a program that
Hmm.
isn't necessarily like you're come in and consult with them, but maybe you
Hmm.
have a quick course that people could go through, or a book that people could purchase, or a
Hmm.
membership, or a whatever, right? Or maybe
Yeah.
you have an event coming up uh, to get people to come
Yeah.
and learn more from you. So yeah, it's really amazing. So if we do some more math, which I like
Hmm.
math, so uh if we are applying to say 100 things a month,
Yeah. What could you expect?
yes.
Yeah.
Because
That's
it sounds
always
like
the
a lot.
question.
Most people I think are like, oh no, I don't want to speak that much. It's
Yeah,
not
and
like
you
you're gonna
won't.
get all 100.
No, you
Yeah.
won't. So I have historic data from before COVID when we were doing 50 applications at a time. And at that point, for somebody with, I would say a decent, like above average speaker kit, doesn't have to be world class. You don't have to have an amazing track record. We were getting, I'd say, 1 to 3 invitations per month from event coordinators, from
From
decision makers.
50
Yeah, out of 50. So it's about 1 to 3. So 100, we're in, because I've only
updated.
relaunched this about a month ago, 6 weeks ago. And I don't see any reason why 100 wouldn't yield twice that. But here's the thing. You're not going to want every one of those gigs. Some
Right.
of them will be too far. You'll have date conflicts. What you want is the ability to say yes, yes, no, no, no.
Uh-huh.
That's what you really want. That's the position to be in. And
Yeah.
that's why I go with such a high number every month.
Yeah.
You know,
So 3 to 5% conversion, we could
I would
say.
say so. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say so.
And we're not
That
counting, those are virtual and live events, like in person, or is that all in person?
it's all in person, but that's
Okay.
only because remember, prior to COVID, nobody was advertising virtual events,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so there are everything can be negotiated in this world, just so you guys know. You know, there might be two speaking opportunities you get invited to, and one of them will let you phone it in literally, like do a virtual
Hmm.
remote presentation, and you might not want to travel that week. And so you
Yeah.
take that one. But yeah, it's a very on the surface, it's a very sort of hard industry to penetrate. But once you get in, it's very collaborative and very sort of um, people are open to all kinds of creative solutions, has been my experience.
Kathleen says, do some of these far away speaking engagements? I don't quite understand. So,
Kathleen or Deb, do you want to jump on and just ask the question?
yeah, unmute
Yeah,
yourself.
So sorry.
that's all right. No, that's what this is for. This is
I was
great.
just wondering, what a fun gig you do, sir. But
Oh,
when
thank you.
you're when you're finding these speaking
Mhm,
engagements for folks, let's say that I live in Texas, for
yep.
example, but you found a speaking engagement that is in Louisiana,
Mhm,
right? Am I, because of my desire to be a speaker,
yep.
I just load up in my car and I drive, if I chose to, all the way.
Mhm.
Would there be a monetary
Well,
desire, like a compensation for that, or is it just all going to be free?
it's never cut and dry. There's
Yeah,
never one thing that applies to all of them. What I always suggest and what I think most event coordinators and decision makers expect is a little bit of negotiation.
Yeah.
Here's what something that nobody thinks about. When you start to, let's say you work for a big company and you're their event person, and they come to you in 2024 and say, end of 2025, we need a big event for whatever, right? What that means is you've got a massive checklist now, and it's massive. It is pages long if you've never done a live event. And what you need to do is check those boxes off with confidence. Like that's where the event coordinator's head is at, right? They're like, I just need to know I got my speakers.
Yeah.
And so that's where they're also motivated by looking good for their bosses, obviously. But they will have a budget for speakers. They will have a budget for this and that, and you get to negotiate your percent of that pie. Is the short answer.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll say, "Nope, it's free," and then you can go, "Okay, I'll stay home." You know,
Yeah. But it
right?
doesn't hurt to ask whenever you do get the opportunity you are invited, right?
Yeah, by all means, you
You should
absolutely
ask
should.
for the travel reimbursement or
Mhm.
I know that events that I've planned, if we don't pay the speaker, we typically almost
Thanks, Fred.
always cover the room,
Yep, yep.
if nothing else. Like we cover
Mhm.
their room and meals, right?
Right.
Just
Yeah,
it's just almost like a courtesy. Like if you were having a
yeah.
guest in your home, you're not going to say,
Mhm.
"Well, leave $100 on the nightstand because of the water and electricity that you used," right? So
That's right.
I think a lot of events, unless there's another thing we haven't really talked about, and if you have friends that are hosting an event, that's a really great place to start, isn't it?
Heck
Like
yeah.
to
Heck
help
yeah.
out your friend with their event, you're not going to make them pay you. You're not going to make them pay for your way, probably, but you're going to get that experience. You're going to help your
Mhm.
friend, right? Host a great
Yeah,
event and give
yeah,
to their community as well. So I know
yeah.
that um, in my world, there's people hosting events all the time,
Mhm.
and all you got to do is go, hey, and usually they're posting like they're looking for an expert in this or an expert in that, whatever.
Right.
Those are things, and those aren't things you're going to find necessarily by Googling,
Yeah, that's
right?
right. Yep.
So that's just staying on top of your network. So
Yeah.
if we talk about, if we were just to summarize a couple of things, terms.
I wouldn't put terms on the one sheet, Marianne. I'd put terms in what's called my writer.
Mm. Like
Yeah,
you only want green M&Ms
exactly. Exactly. I knew somebody would catch that. That's right. In the limo.
and fizzy water only, room
That's right.
temperature,
That's right.
in the Rolls
Um,
Royce that picks
so
you up.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that stuff typically goes in your writer and then would be negotiated back and forth.
And those would be things too about like you require like a lapel mic or
Mhm.
you need a whiteboard or
Yeah,
a
right.
bottle of water or whatever. So
Yep. All of that stuff.
I
Yeah.
haven't had any, I've had some pretty high profile speakers on my stages and I haven't had anybody ask for anything crazy, believe it or not.
I don't think that that's common in speaking. I think that's
Mhm.
more common in rock,
Yeah,
rock
in
and roll.
concert.
Yeah.
Yeah. One person
Um,
did request a specific type of Red Bull to be on ice everywhere he was.
I had one person request a specific, extremely expensive microphone. And I
Oh,
said,
brother.
no. I was just like, no, sorry.
We don't have that.
Uh-uh. We
Yeah.
don't have the $3,000 mic.
Yeah.
And if you need a mic that's $3,000 to make you good, you're probably not that good to begin
Yeah.
with.
So to break
But
into this, to start getting some more gigs, say you want to do it yourself, right?
Mhm.
Um, what what would be like the top 5 things you probably need to have in place when
Yeah,
you want to look legitimate and like you're really going to treat this like a growth option for your business?
great headshots. Don't skimp on the headshots. And there's no excuse today. I mean, I don't know. I hear that Google phones have amazing cameras. I'm an iPhone guy, and the cameras are fantastic. There's no excuse to not have a great headshot.
Are we talking like traditional headshot, or
No,
is this a
no.
place, a time to kind of express your personality a bit? Is an
It
action
de-
shot from stage appropriate, or is that something
if
different?
you've got it, yes. Yeah. Anything that subtly suggests you're great on stage is going to help. And then in terms of the other question, like the last thing I would ever encourage anybody to do is get like a realtor headshot. You know,
Yeah.
don't do
Glamour
that
shot
ever. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm a strong no on that.
like that.
Yeah, right. I'm a strong no for those. But you gotta look presentable.
Yeah.
Imagine you're the decision maker and you're thumbing through a bunch of applications and you got a bunch of people who look like they just crawled out from under a bridge and one person with a great shot. It's just human nature that's going to
Yeah.
catch your eye. So it's that kind of thing.
Okay.
Um, really intriguing, what I call sticky titles for your talks.
Okay.
Um, and so this is where copywriting comes in. Really, it's an unfair advantage. Most people's talks are, well, they're titled like you'd expect, right? There's no persuasion in them, there's no seduction in them, and you want those things in the title of your talk
Do you
for
want
sure.
it to be like a webinar title would be?
No, no.
You know
You
what I'm
mean like
saying?
a yeah, like a standard landing page headline formula?
Like how to whatever or discover the whatever. That's not really what you mean.
Not exactly.
Do you have an example of a sticky talk
So
title?
if I was going to do a talk on getting booked to speak,
Okay.
and I didn't know what I was doing with talk titles, my talk might be something like how to get booked to speak, right?
Yeah.
But if I was me and I know a little bit about persuasion and the power of like verbal firecrackers, it might be something more along the lines of the 3-step process to guarantee speaking gigs come your way, regardless of dot, 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 or something like that.
Okay.
Again, the person making the decision is thinking about looking good for their boss and adding value to their audience.
Yeah.
And you need to slot in with that.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So you
Yeah.
need good headshots,
Mhm.
a sticky title for your talk, or
Yeah.
talks
Yeah.
plural?
I would say 3 to 5 sticky titles.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you follow the next thing I'm about to share, which is again looking in locations that are unexpected,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to want to do variations of your talk titles appropriate for those audiences.
Uh-huh.
And as far as I'm concerned, that has Chat GPT written all over it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like once you get a good one, Chat GPT can improvise off of it. And this is just a little funny observation, but if you do it enough, the improvisations get worse and worse over time. But the first 20 or so typically are very strong,
Yeah,
but it
I
just gets
agree.
weirder and weirder.
Yeah, like bro, you're going the wrong way. Like we don't
Yeah, right.
you haven't been paying attention the last year. Like what are you talking about?
Exactly.
I have to
Exactly.
tell my chat sometimes is like I'm a human. People don't say that. They don't talk like
Right.
that. Like
Exactly. Yeah. We don't use that kind of sentence structure
no, haven't you learned
ever.
anything? Goodness gracious. Okay, headshot
So,
sticky title.
mhm.
Look
Good one sheet.
a good one.
And a one sheet is really simple. Like, in fact, your headshot and your titles would also be on the one sheet.
Uh-huh.
And then it's just like where to find you on social media, any accolades you might have if you have them.
Uh-huh.
Um, and your website if you have it.
Very
It's
basic
really
business card of
it's a business card. Yeah, it's a business card.
yeah.
Um, and that would be it. That would be that and the knowledge of how to go about finding them in the first place
And if
would be
you
it.
do have a prior experience, potentially a speaker reel, right?
Mhm.
Would you suggest that?
I would suggest it. Weirdly, I am seeing less and less events calling for it, but a lot of them give you an opportunity to put the link to it. But
Uh-huh.
it's not like top of their list on their applications anymore,
Interesting. Don't they
which
want to
is
see that you know what you're doing somewhat?
I can't speak to that because I was surprised when I saw that it seems to have become less important to them.
Okay. So
Yeah.
don't let that hold you back
Well,
from
no, don't because
applying because you may not even have to have one.
and getting a good speaker reel is time and money.
It is.
You know, to get a 90-second reel, you got to do, I don't know, 20 minutes on camera, an
Yeah.
hour on camera,
And have a
and
great editor, honestly, to make it worth
great
looking
editor,
at.
great
Mhm.
location, great videographer.
Yeah.
The
So if
difference
you don't
between,
have the reel, don't
don't
let
worry.
that deter you from
Right,
moving
right.
forward.
Yeah. And you can usually get a great reel from your first talk.
Hmm.
They almost always have videographers on hand.
Yeah.
And, so that would be like, oh, here you go. That would be in your writer or in your negotiations.
You
You
get that
know, I get
asset.
all footage
Yeah.
that involves me. I get access to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Photography and video.
Hmm. Yeah. And especially if you're speaking for free, those event producers and coordinators should know already to have a photographer and a videographer on
Mm-hmm.
hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. So to me, all of this sounds amazing. Like if I could get my pick, my choice every
Mhm.
month of like, yeah, I want to do that. But
Yeah.
let's also, we didn't talk about this, but these are events that are probably happening in months ahead of time. They're not something
Almost
that
always.
is
Yeah.
happening next month and you're applying. So you're looking at stuff 6 months out or
Right.
more.
Right. And I do have
So,
a little hack for that, by the way. Especially, well, this is specifically if you're getting invited to paid keynoting opportunities. Require $1,000 deposit to hold the spot on your calendar.
mhm.
Yeah. Because otherwise, you're getting, yes, you're in, and you don't see any money for 6 months, 9 months, a year. And filling a pipeline like that is unnecessarily hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
To me, this all, like I said, this all sounds so awesome to be able to say my own personal goal would be to travel one place per quarter
Hmm.
and then
Yeah.
maybe do a couple of virtual type things a month,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
podcast or whatever. My goals are different though. And so everybody's goals are going to be their own. And you might want to be
Hmm.
traveling once a week or
Yeah.
whatever, right? But what we've covered today is incredible, but I'm also a mom. I run a business. I have clients and I want to have a life too. So all of this sounds like a lot of extra time and work for me to do or
Yeah,
train someone to do on my behalf.
right. Yeah.
So what is your solution for that? So I'm like a perfect candidate that
You're a
I'm
perfect
looking,
candidate.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking for the thing. I have some speaking,
Hmm.
experience. But man, I don't have all these assets together,
Hmm.
right? And I don't have time to
Hmm.
figure out how to add plus signs to search bars or
Yeah.
like I don't want to do any of that. So, what is your solution for someone like me that really wants to use speaking as a tool to grow
Yeah.
my business next year, but I don't
It's
have the effort or time to put into it?
basically it's a full end to end. We'll just handle it for you. Just leave it with us. That's how we do it.
Okay.
And there's a couple of things, like a lot of professional speakers will have a full-time VA that applies on their behalf. That's the VA's only job. Um, we do it better than because speakers don't know the backside of it,
Yeah.
right? They know the presentation side and they know the theater of it and the entertainment. Um, so we're better unequivocally, but also we're a little less than 50% of what it costs to have a VA full time.
Uh-huh.
And so that's my solution. My solution is we'll do it faster, we'll do it better, we'll do it more professionally. And at typically a VA full time is about 2,000 bucks a month.
Okay.
And we do it for about
500 a
800
week.
bucks.
That's not
Yeah,
crazy, right?
right. And we do it for 800 a month. And our VAs are specifically only, this is all they do. Our team only does this.
Is there a
And
commitment?
nope, I never do commitments. It's not realistic.
Mm-hmm.
If it was so much money that it could be enforceable through a contract, I might do a commitment on
Yeah.
something. But let's be realistic here. You can't enforce an $800 a month contract.
What about
So,
when it comes to the follow-up after all these applications have been
yeah,
submitted? Am
that's
I the
us.
one?
That's
It's
that's
you're
us.
following up and answering. You know the answers to the questions because you know
Or
about.
we ask you,
Okay.
right? Yeah. So inevitably, you're going to have moments, situations, decision makers who have an off the wall question. Here's what we do. Actually, I'll pull the curtain back for you. We are constantly just compiling master lists of everything,
Uh-huh.
everything. Oddball questions, put them on a list. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And then little by little, the things that get enough repetition make it into our onboarding form.
Right. So then
And
you
so our
can
onboarding
get
form is
one.
always growing. And even at this point, it's so good that it is an accurate representation of you as a professional. Like we know almost everything we need to know. And then if there's something that we have a question about, we just ask you. And then, but
So that
we
follow-up
hand,
is a big deal because I could see that going back and forth quite a bit of the emails from that 100 applications that go
mhm.
out.
Yeah,
But
yeah, we
I
handle
don't even
all
have to
that
worry about that.
right up to the point where if I'm the decision maker, I say, hey, Amanda Dake looks like a great fit for this talk. We'd love to have her. I say, wonderful. She's my boss. Let me make an intro. And
I
that's
see.
it.
Mm-hmm.
So we take really, it's again, I want it as simple and transparent as possible. We take all the labor off of your plate for you, and we do it at a level that you wouldn't reasonably be expected to know how to do it at. It's a
Yeah.
polite way of saying we're better than you.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I don't want to have to figure out what search terms to put in Google to find these
Right.
events in the first place,
Exactly.
let alone
Exactly.
all the other nuances that go to it.
And then
Marianne,
Marianne,
yeah.
yeah, we both got to her at the same time. I would say from 100 applications, you would probably get somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 6 invitations a month to speak. Of those, I would imagine that you would, and I'm just guessing here because I don't know you, I would imagine you'd probably take 2 or 3 of them. Out of all the different reasons why one wouldn't work, I would say you're probably looking at about half.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of paid or free, you tell us what you want us to find, we go find it. If you were like, all I want is virtual presentations and paid opportunities, that's what we go find. All I want is podcasts and pay to play. That's what we go find. It's, I sort of, I don't know if this analogy works for people who aren't in my head and doing the work, but I think of us as a very professional pack of pit bulls. And you just take us off the leash and we just go.
Uh-huh.
And we don't stop. You know, it's 100 or bust. It really
Yeah.
is. A minimum, there's only one retainer. It's not minimum or maximum. It's just $800 a month, full stop. And it's month to month. It's start when you want, stop when you want.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Uh,
That was the whole idea, is like really try to solve one very, very bothersome problem
and
for one
time
very
consuming,
specific group of people.
a very time
Yeah.
consuming problem as well.
Well, that's why it's so bothersome. Like Amanda, you and I serving people in the coaching space, you know, most people will find any reason not to do things.
Oh, yeah.
And it's such a strange phenomenon, right? And so for the last 5 years, my answer has been everything I offer will be done for you. Like that's it.
Yeah.
That's how I do things.
Well, I think this has been really helpful. I know we're always looking for something. I'll say for myself, I'm always looking for some way to grow my business that isn't giving money to Zuckerberg. And
More than ever after this last
it's just
little
been,
amount of
it's
time.
harder and harder. All the things that they've got, all these different changes inside the platform, and the
Yeah.
reach is different. All the things are so different.
Yeah.
And again, I just want to break out of this bubble. And I feel
too.
like there's so many people outside of social media
Right.
that I can help and want to help that
Mhm.
I'm never going to find, no matter how much I pay in ads, because they're not there. Right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think getting on stages, and I'm using that term broadly, is just such a great solution to the problem of getting out of that bubble for myself.
Yeah.
Um,
One other thing too that I think everybody who works digitally should be aware of, as technology increases, so does the value of human connection.
yeah.
Like it's really important to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's why I've loved hosting live events for so long, is because there is something different and almost magical about getting in a room with other humans
Yeah.
and shaking their hands and seeing them in person. Magic happens. It really does.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'm not talking about magic and just getting a paycheck or getting a new client.
No.
There's something about, for me, meeting people and connecting with them at that level is truly special. And it's really harder and harder to do online.
Yeah. And I think it comes back to that same, like, as technology increases, so does the value of connection. I mean, one of the things, and this is just sort of talking now, you know, like this is sort of like the presentation is over and we're just hanging out. But one of the things that COVID really showed me was how important those little things are. Like going to the same store or the same coffee shop and saying hi to the same people.
Yeah.
Just that connection. And that's at least part of what you're talking about. It's so much more meaningful. And Zoom calls they are what they are, and they're better than nothing for sure. But yeah, nothing quite takes the place of IRL.
Yeah. And people are starving for that contact.
I agree.
Whether they realize it or not.
Yeah.
And then Manny, do you have a link that you can share here that if somebody wants to learn more or get with you, you can share that?
I'll do this,
chat, or you can give it to me and
I'll do both.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you guys, those of you that are here and whoever watches after, the link is to the landing page, but I'm not trying to bait and switch you. It also has all the information about the service. So that's why it's really great. And it gives you the opportunity to book a call if you're interested. So it's probably the perfect thing.
Yeah, it is.
So let me grab that now and I'll share it.
Okay. Do you guys have any other questions?
No, I'm just blown away because, you know, I'm a huge believer in the law of attraction. And like, when I tell you this is exactly what I've been looking for, it's almost weird.
Or perfect.
Yeah.
I think Kathleen, if I'm not mistaken, I think the last time that we worked together or spoke, it was also kind of like that.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
I just
And
wasn't
it's been
ready. And
years.
look,
It's been so long
it's been
ago, but
years.
mhm.
Yeah, I launched my book since then, but I remember speaking to you and you were talking to me about funnels, and I had absolutely no idea
Yeah.
what you were talking about looking back. Now I get it, but I was so not ready, but I feel like speaking is really, I've done some speaking, not a
Uh-huh.
ton, but even just because of my book, I did some public speaking for that. And I have my life coach who I've been working with for about a year and a half. And we've sort of just narrowed down recently. And I said, all I really want to do is speak.
That's
Paid,
amazing.
Ah,
free, don't care. And like sell this new program I wrote
Yeah.
from the stage.
That's what we've
Or
got.
that, and this is so weird. And that price is doable.
Yeah.
wonderful.
Okay, Manny just put the link over in the chat. I'll also take it and make sure that everybody gets it with the recording too.
Yeah, so it's in your chat, Amanda, in
Mhm.
Messenger, and it's here.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then quick question, Amanda, where do you fall into this? So like, let's say I start, doing the program and getting some speaking, because you know, I've always said to you, eventually we will work together. I don't know how, where, whatever, but like, where do you fit into that? Are you more like
I don't
once I'm
know.
established?
I just wanted to promote Manny's service. So I really don't have a role in any of this, other than I want to book more stages next year, and I wanted to share this with my audience too. And gratuitously, I'm bringing back my podcast, and this is going to serve as one of those types of episodes. So, yeah, I don't really have a dog in this fight, so to speak. I just wanted to share this opportunity because of the price, of the value, of how fast you can get the results if you are wanting to book stages. I just love it so much. That's it. Like, it's that simple. Hey, thanks for checking out this video. Subscribe and ring the bell if you haven't done that already. And if you'd like to check out more of our videos, go ahead and just tap the screen right here.